And now we want to move to the second part of our program. While our panelists are coming up, I'm pleased to introduce this plenary panel, The Clean Energy Economy, Manufacture It, Improve It, Invest in It. In his State of the Union address, President Obama challenged us to out-innovate, out-educate, and out-build the rest of the world. So this next panel looks at just how we can win the clean energy jobs of the future. And so this morning, we bring together this unique panel to talk about how to develop the clean energy agenda and those good family-supporting jobs. Here to help us with this discussion is Jon Podesta, President and CEO of the Center for American Progress. As most of you know, Jon is leading the center to be one of the most influential and effective advocates for progressive policy. Prior to founding the center, he served as White House Chief of Staff for President Clinton and has held numerous positions on Capitol Hill. He's also the author of the book, The Power of Progress, How America's Progressives Can Once Again Save Our Economy, Our Climate, and Our Country. Please join me in welcoming Jon Podesta.
Thanks, Dave. A lot's been said, and I don't intend to repeat it all, but I'm just going to give a couple of opening remarks, and then we've got a great panel, and I'm going to throw them some questions and try to get them to exchange with each other and have a conversation going. I want to start off, though, by thanking Leo Gerard and Dave Foster and Carl Pope for not only focusing on the green economy and the clean economy, but doing so with a relentless focus on job creation and getting wages growing again in this country. It's really critical, and I think we need to expand the green economy, but we got to do it in a way that's going to produce good jobs. And as been mentioned 2 weeks ago in his State of the Union address, President Obama made it clear that building a clean energy economy remains a first priority of the presidency and for the nation. He called the clean energy economy the next Sputnik moment, and he issued a challenge, I think, to all of us, particularly to Nancy Sutley, to make sure that happens, to work on the hardest problems and to begin to solve them. I think that challenge is clearer today than it was in Pittsburgh 3 years ago, when this conference was first launched, that the transformation of the U.S. energy base to a clean energy economy is not just an environmental necessity, as Lisa Jackson said. It's central to an economic strategy that will lead to an industrial renaissance in this country and job growth and wage growth in the United States. I think it's clear that the president gets that. His economic advisor gets that. His whole top team gets it. Hopefully the people who were sitting at the Chamber of Commerce yesterday who heard from the president when he asked them to get off the sidelines and invest in that new economy and create jobs in the United States. I hope they get it too, and I know we have one of the leading business people with us today who's making that happen. I think we all need to do what we can to make it happen. At the Center for American Progress, we've argued that to build the green economy, we need to do three things. We need to shape strong markets through smart public policies. We need to provide better access to low-cost financing and to cut the cost of clean technologies. And finally, we need to build in America a globally competitive infrastructure to support businesses that drive economic growth. And as has been noted, thanks to the investments in the Recovery Act and other actions taken, 800,000 jobs in the green tech, clean energy sector have already happened or are in the process of happening because of those investments. Gene mentioned the clean energy grants that have spurred 4,250 gigawatts of new renewable power project, put 85,000 people kept 85,000 people at work in the depth of the recession. The advanced manufacturing credit. I just want to highlight one of the things he said. When the administration, through that Recovery Act program, began to invest in advanced battery projects, the United States had 2% of the global advanced battery market. 2%. We now have 16%. We're on track to have 40% in 2015. Those are real jobs doing real work here in this country. I think the decision to keep the American auto companies running, made GM and Chrysler profitable again while jump-starting an enormous amount of innovation. Those companies are now profitable. All three auto companies are hiring, and they're investing in producing cleaner and more efficient vehicles for the future. So the question for the panel is, how do we continue this momentum? How do we build on this platform going forward? We obviously have some political challenges, particularly with the leadership of the House of Representatives, and we've got a terrific panel to answer the questions about how we retool our markets and expand investment and increase our manufacturing capacity. Nancy Sutley is the White House Counsel, chair of the White House Council on Environmental Quality. Bill O'Rourke is the VP for Sustainability and Environment, Health and Safety at Alcoa. Leo Gerard, is the International President of the United Steelworkers, and Kevin Knobloch is the President of the Union of Concerned Scientists. You have long resumes in their packet. I'm not going to do them justice here. I'm just going to introduce them and begin by asking them questions. I'd like to start with Nancy and ask you, Nancy, over the last 2 years, there's been a lot of attention. I think, again, at these conferences, we focused a lot of attention on trying to produce comprehensive clean energy legislation that dealt with the climate challenge. That now appears to be off the table in terms of the kinds of legislation that were here in the last 2 years. You sit at the center of organizing the executive branch. What authorities does the president have under current law? What's he doing? What's his strategy to get everyone in the game, to get all of his agencies to try to produce the results that he's called for in the State of the Union?
Well, thanks, John, and also thanks to the organizers and all the organizations sponsoring this conference. It really is always great to come here and to see the enthusiasm and the belief, I think, that this conference represents that the clean, healthy environment and a strong economy go hand in hand, and that as we are protecting our families, we are promoting prosperity by investing in and promoting clean energy jobs. And I think, there's no doubt that the clean energy economy really is one of the keys to our future prosperity, our future and continued global leadership, and that whether or not the Congress passes comprehensive energy and climate legislation, there's certainly a lot that we can do to help to promote that clean energy economy, to protect our communities, protect their health, protect the planet, and promote prosperity. And as you said, in the State of the Union, the President laid out some goals for this year for the administration to develop a clean energy standard. I mean, the belief that we have to clean up the way that we produce energy, so to get to 80% clean sources by I'm going to forget the date, 2035. Also to invest in advanced technology vehicles. I mean, really deal with problems, both the air pollution that plagues our cities, but also really invest in advanced technology vehicles and electric vehicles that will create jobs here at home and make our cities and our communities cleaner, our transportation system a lot cleaner. You talked about research and development and continued need to invest in research and development in the basic energy technologies, clean energy technologies. And this, I think, builds on a number of things that the administration has done over the last 2 years and will continue to do. I mean, certainly the Recovery Act has been a tremendous opportunity for the clean energy economy to grow and to prosper, whether it's investments in the smart grid or in retrofitting buildings, whether it's retrofitting homes or even government buildings, that using the regulatory authorities of the Department of Transportation and the EPA to set fuel economy standards that will create, again, the incentive for a whole new generation of vehicles that are cleaner, that are produced here in the United States, that create jobs here in the U.S. Also looking at the federal government itself and its environmental footprint, and where are the places that we can continue to make progress to make the federal government cleaner and greener, and also a leader in a leader by example in clean technologies and working with the private sector and with the public sector and with the community groups to promote a clean energy economy. So there's a lot that's going on. There's a lot that we'll continue to work on. And yesterday, for example, Steve Chu, Secretary Chu, and Secretary Salazar made some announcements in Virginia about the potentials for offshore wind development, which is a potentially huge resource, clean energy resource, for certainly here on the East Coast. Continue to see a lot of activity in renewable energy, and all of us trying to work to make sure that projects underway, and for example, in the West are coming online. So we'll continue to work on those things and continue to make this a priority. The President spent a lot of time in the State of the Union. I mean, those whatever 6,000 total words, a lot of them were devoted to clean energy, and I think it reflects the priority that this administration places on growing this clean energy economy and how important it is to both our economic future and our ability to out-innovate and out-compete, as the President said, and outbuild the rest of the world.
Leo, you raised in your opening comments the fact that the country needs a manufacturing plan, it needs an industrial plan. You quoted Bill Ford in saying we need a plan. President recently appointed your former colleague, Ron Bloom, to be his senior advisor, working with Gene Sperling on manufacturing. When you have drinks with Ron, what do you tell him he needs to get done?
I tell him he's got to pay. I'm not allowed to buy him a drink anymore. So, but let me say that I tell him that we need to work with all different segments of our society so that we can develop the industrial strategy or the manufacturing plan. I also tell them that it's not enough just to talk about it. We need some resources assigned to it. We need to strengthen 48C. Gene talked about, I always forget the numbers, it's 16B or something? 1603. That's to stand up a renewable energy farm or solar, wind. But we need the money in the 48C so that we can develop the pipeline, the infrastructure to make the components to go into that. And so that I think it's a positive move that the President has put someone in a key position advising him and his team about an industrial plan and industrial strategy. The thing that can't happen is we can't just expect this to sort of through osmosis. It's not going to happen. We need to think about the limited resources that we have, how we direct those into the places that will make the most jobs, and what we've got to do is develop the supply chain. One of the things that worries me a lot, as an example, I talk all the time about high-speed rail. We've only got 2 rail manufacturers in America. So if we're going to talk about a high-speed rail, we can't put it forward as a 5-year project. It's got to be a 20-year project so that people will invest in creating the supply chain for the high-speed rail. Same thing with wind turbines. We need to have a long-term supply chain. And so I think that one of the things I worry about is that we spent a lot of time in the last 10 years worrying about our dependence on Middle East oil. I don't want to switch from worrying about Middle East oil to worrying about imported renewable energy from someplace else. We have the ability here with a plan and a process to lead on the R&D, to lead on the manufacturing, to lead on building a supply chain. And it won't happen unless we all come together. And I think the people in this room, the Blue-Green Alliance, have the capacity to go back to the grassroots and demand that kind of innovation, demand that the Congress respond to that. And so I'm really pleased that I think it's the first time, John, you'd know better than I, you were there with President Clinton. I think it's the first time in certainly the last 15 years that we've had someone in a key spot in the administration whose job was to help develop manufacturing strategy, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, someplace in the 1980s, I think industrial policy got a bad name, but I think as you travel around the world, does it seem like that is a bad word in other countries that are investing in these things?
It's a good word. Those countries that have an industrial plan, those countries that have an industrial strategy, a manufacturing plan, they've come out of this recession that happened in their countries already faster than us. Look at Germany, look at France, look at most of Europe. China has a strategy, but China cheats, and that's a totally different issue.
Yeah, we're going to come back to that. They make a lot of investments, but they cheat a little on the side too, right? Bill, Alcoa is the largest aluminum producer in the world. You're exposed to all these markets. You made important commitments to cleaning up the energy input side of the company and making dramatic reductions in your carbon footprint and in sustainability. The aluminum production is a huge energy suck. How does energy innovation drive your industrial innovation strategy at Alcoa, and it has been successful?
Yeah, first, it's a privilege to be here, and thank you for that opportunity. The aluminum industry requires an awful lot of energy, like most metals manufacturers. We have a very large carbon footprint, and we have to focus on that side of the business. And for the last 30, 40, 50 years, we've been trying to reduce the energy, not from altruism, not to answer the law, but because it's the right thing to do, and it saves us money. There's a natural incentive for people to reduce their energy requirements, whether it's in our home or in a smelter. You want to get the energy down because it's going to save you money. Since 1990, Alcoa has been able to reduce their carbon footprint by 43%. Still, we set another objective to That's good, but not enough. We've just set another objective that by the year 2020, we have to take another 20% out of it. By the year 2030, another 30% out of it. And we have to reduce that footprint. Natural incentive. And that's on one side of the company. You must get energy efficient. We all have to do that, no matter where we are. On the other side of the coin, we believe that our aluminum is a nutrient for energy savings down the road. We can lightweight everything that moves. If you move aluminum, it's often a lot lighter than other materials. That saves energy, that saves efficiency. We can reduce that, whether it's in vehicles, wherever it is, by putting that into aluminum, you might be able to find energy savings on the other side. For example, you take a big semi-tractor trailer. Depending on the number of wheels you have on that, if you have 18 wheels, you save 1,300 pounds of metal on that vehicle. And that saves something like 7 million tons of CO2 over the 50-year life of that rig. That's significant. And we need more of those wheels that are manufactured in Cleveland and elsewhere. We need more of those wheels to go on the vehicles. We need more products that we have to work in that way. We also have to recycle our products, no matter what the product is, whether it's aluminum or others. For example, if you take a properly disposed aluminum can, becomes an aluminum can again in 60 days. And then it becomes a can again in 60 days and again in 60 days, and it's like reincarnation over and over again. And there are businesses and jobs that are taking the recycled material, putting it back into that supply chain that Leo's talking about, and getting it back to the factory to be able to melt it in an efficient way. And it takes 5% of the energy to make aluminum from recycled product than it does to do it from the ore. And that's going to be a product in the future, to use more and more material. Whether it's aluminum or others, we have to do that.
Thank you. Kevin, get you into this. You do a lot of policy work at UCS on what policies are going to drive job growth. But I want, because you're the Union of Concerned Scientists, I want to start with you on the innovation side, the role of science and technological innovation in powering the economy. How important has it been? How important is it? And there's, I think, now a mindset that we can create it here, even if it's produced someplace else. The United States economy is going to thrive in that circumstance. If we're not making it here, are we going to be discovering it here? What's the role of science in this value chain discussion?
I mean, John, my sense is that one of the great unsung stories is the role of science and scientists and engineers and technologists in creating this, what was really the most impressive and robust economy in the history of the world. And it goes back to the Industrial Revolution, the dawn of the Industrial Revolution. When oil was discovered, scientists and engineers who figured out how to build an internal combustion engine, or the kinds of boilers and furnaces that could power industry and our homes, that created the amazing Industrial Revolution. It was also scientists who figured out, by studying the effects of soot and smog, about the harmful effects of burning fossil fuels. And there's also scientists who've come up with scrubbers and catalytic converters and allow us to clean that up. So I think it's an unsung story and a very powerful one. It also bridges over to things like the defense industry. In World War II, we don't fully understand the role of scientists in discovering and inventing radar and deploying it when the German submarines and bombers were creaming us and the Brits and so on. So that role is very fundamental. So moving forward, science will continue to have a seminal role both in wealth creation, job creation, but also continuing to raise our standard of life. So the Clean Air Act was setting the performance standards. Then it comes down back to scientists to figure out, how can we meet that standard? One of the great success stories of just the last 10 years happened in Detroit, when the auto industry was asked, with the Clean Air Act amendments of 1990, to develop the Tier 2 standards for SOx, NOx, and particulates. Very aggressive standards. The industry, much of the industry, fought those standards. But once Congress said, and the administration said, this is where we got to go, they put their best minds on the case. And they cracked the code. They really broke through on diesel emissions and these other things. So that the vehicles many of you drove to this event today, are upwards of 90% cleaner, not the tailpipe, in terms of SOx, NOx, and particulates. And that allows Detroit to sell more cars into the market. So it's very powerful. I just want to add one short footnote on this, and that has to do with the thanks that the science community has gotten by raising the alarm around climate change has been to be on the receiving end of a vicious attack. And I think many in organized labor probably recognize this game plan when you speak truth to power, when you stand up and say, this is what the evidence has to, and what the facts have to say. Climate scientists are under fierce attack on their credibility right now because they are spending their lives studying the impacts in the science of climate change. And I think that's heinous. I think we have to flip that. And I think the American public, if you look at opinion polls, they have deep respect for scientists, both as for the work they do on behalf of the public good and also as credible professionals. And I think we all have to help these scientists push back on that attack.
It's really important. Sure, go ahead, man.
Let me add a comment on innovation. I've been following the patent literature and understand that almost 30% of the currently filed patent applications pertain to green inventions of some kind. I don't know how you define that. I personally believe every job's a green job, even our own, whether you're being energy efficient or conserving water, whatever you're doing. But if 30% of the current inventions that are being filed in the U.S. Patent Office pertain to green jobs, I think that's a leading indicator of where we're going to go in the future. I hope so.
Let me come back and ask you because I think sometimes people hear the story that, well, we'll invent it here, we'll finance it here, we'll be innovative at the high end, then we can manufacture it all someplace else. If you break that linkage between invention, innovation, research and development, how long does it take for the R&D to go with the manufacturing?
Not very long.
Not very long. The wind story is an interesting one. It was mentioned there are 85,000 wind jobs today. That's a tripling of jobs in the wind industry since 2007. That has everything to do with the 30 states that have adopted renewable electricity standards over the last decade and a half, setting the performance standards. Then industry has come and started to build these turbines. Because wind turbines, wind blades, the towers are very large, expensive to transport, wind energy companies, both in this manufacturing companies in this country and abroad, are locating their manufacturing facilities here. And then increasingly, there are more assembly plants coming online. So that's the law of thermodynamics, right? That helps that one. But I think we have to be much more aggressive in making sure that when we invent it here, which is in fact happening at a very exciting scale and pace because of the entrepreneurial spirit of the American people, we have to figure out a way to keep it here. And our sense is the way you do that is by governmental policy, national policy that says, plants a flag out there, as the president just did. 80% clean energy, you know, by 2030.
Well, let's talk a little bit about China. You said you had no problems in your opening comments with their investments. Their green recovery program was bigger than the United States. It was the only one larger, and a bigger percentage of their recovery program after the recession in 2008 was in these new technologies and green technologies, from high-speed rail to wind, solar, et cetera. If you have no problem in those investments, you filed the 301 case. What are they doing wrong, and what do we need to do about it?
Well, through a variety of programs and administrative decrees, they're setting up an unlevel playing field. For example, they'll insist that if you want to sell products in China, you got to manufacture them in China. They've done that certainly in wind turbines. They will give an unbelievable, unfair, unlevel playing field when it comes to access to capital. You can get the capital for next to nothing. They'll have lax environmental enforcement. They've got a number of decrees. One of the very important things that everybody in America ought to be worried about is what they're doing on rare earth products. You need rare earth magnets, you need rare earth materials to make almost anything. Wind turbines, cars, computers, almost everything in the defense industry. And so that they're holding back, and they control 90% of the rare earth minerals now. So we filed the 301 petition on the desire to get a level playing field. If they want to take their money and build wind turbines in China, God bless them. But what I don't like, and Kevin's alluded to it, is that we do the R&D, we do the innovation, and then the Chinese will say, come over here, and by the way, we want you to show us how to do this. And then they take that innovation we've done, they manufacture there and send it back here. That isn't right. Those aren't jobs for the future. And my concern, both as a parent and as a leader in the union, just like I don't want us to have to rely on Middle East oil, I don't want us to have to rely on imported renewable energy products. So I think that we need to simply say to China, you agreed to a set of rules to get into the WTO. I don't need to debate that I think the WTO is a crock, but that's a separate matter. You know, but they agreed to come in by those rules. Well, at least play by those rules. And our union is going to enforce the rules and demand that we have a level playing field because what Kevin said, the R&D will follow the manufacturing. If they end up being the manufacturers of the wind turbines, high-speed rail, the renewed engines, and all of that stuff, then the R&D will follow that. If we do it here, the R&D will be here. And our scientists and our manufacturers will come together, innovate, and make the best products. So we're going to be as aggressive as we can be.
I'll come back to Nancy in a second, but Bill, you work globally. Who's getting this right? Who's got the right set of policies? Where do you see government activity that is strongly encouraging this kind of innovation, and who's lagging behind?
In the global environment, we see all kinds of different jurisdictions with different kinds of rules, and you have to comply with those. When Lisa Jackson talked to us, she talked to us about certainty. Certainty is really what you need as a corporation. You have to understand where you're going to go. And I believe if the United States could lay out a plan of here's where the rules are going to go in air and water and waste and health and others, and lay it out that this is what we have to do for the next 10, 15, 20 years, that would help industry so much. And you could then lay out your plans and your capital investments, time them appropriately, go through recessions and inflations the right way, and be able to know what you have to do when. And I think that's the best thing you could do. Some jurisdictions get it better than others, but the erratic rules that you have in different jurisdictions makes it difficult to make a decision, should you invest there or should you not invest there. So I think if we can make certainty in the laws in the United States, that would encourage the investment, because I believe the technology is there. I believe the engineers will know how to solve these problems. And as we put NOx and SOx and other regulations out, we didn't know how we were going to comply with those, and look at now. Look at the country that we have right now. I grew up in the city of Pittsburgh where I learned to water ski in those rivers. You didn't want to fall in those rivers. You really didn't. And now we're having bass fishing tournaments in those same rivers in Pittsburgh. That's absolutely amazing turnaround in one lifetime. And the same thing's true with the air quality in every city in this country. And I believe if we can lay out that certainty of here's how clean we have to get, have the debate so that the rules are right, and then let industry know that's where we have to go, I think that would serve us all well.
It's amazing. Everybody here grew up in the industrial Midwest. I got in trouble for talking about eating fish out of the Chicago River once, and I'm not going to do it again. Leo?
Coming from the home of the 6-time Super Bowl champs, almost 7,
Just remember the Packers beat the Bears 2 weeks earlier.
One of the things when you talk about certainty, I think we need to reflect, and we heard Lisa and we've heard Kevin and heard others talking about certainty. Our union got vilified when we came out in support of the Clean Air and Clean Water Act in 1990. Employers hired buses and tried to get our members on buses to come to Washington against the position of their union. And we won't tell you why the buses didn't make it to Washington, but they did make it. But I think one of the things we need to do with and why I'm so committed to trying to get a grassroots movement on this, even in the political environment that we're now in, decisions have been made about the medium term and long term. They're not short-term decisions that the president's laying out for us. And as we get that, we end up in the political mess of people trying to rescind the progress that's already made. And I'm sure that if you're sitting in the boardroom in Alcoa, you're saying, well, we'll wait till this fight is over. Well, while they're waiting for this fight to be over, we're losing jobs, we're losing momentum, we're losing the innovation that's going to other places that are playing by a different set of rules. And I think it's important that we recognize that as we lay out a plan, we need to make sure that that plan is going to be the plan for 5, 10, and 15 years. I just reading a piece that a company that we've had a really good relationship, Middle Steel, they put in a recovery and reuse program for energy. Their recovery and reuse program is going to save enough energy to electrify 33,000 homes. They're going to take enough carbon out of the air with their reuse program to be the equivalent of taking 60,000 cars off the highway. They knew what the certainty was, and they went ahead and did it. And I think that it's important in the political environment that those of us who have contact with the citizens every day, let them know that when we start to move progress forward, it's unacceptable for either political party to try to roll it back, because that's what creates the uncertainty.
Nancy? That's good. Nancy, you were in the middle of the BP oil disaster this summer, Deepwater Horizon. In terms of predictability of those communities, particularly regional communities that have been dependent on oil and gas production, on coal production, does that level of midterm and long-term certainty can sound like midterm and long-term real challenge to their viability and sustainability in terms of the economies that have been built around those industries. What have you counseled? What's the role of building this new green economy in places that are, really been affected by and built their future around, in essence, the old economy?
Well, the Gulf oil spill, I think, was a reminder to us that how dependent we are on our world for our prosperity and for our planet. Our planet's health is so important to our economy, and just a reminder that we are dependent on fossil fuels, and it has consequences when something like this happens. And so as we look forward, we have to kind of consider across the board how we respond to something like the Gulf oil spill. First of all, we have to make sure that those communities that were affected by that are brought back to health, that they get a chance for not only their natural systems to recover, but for their economies to recover. And Lisa Jackson, in one of her many hats, is chairing a Gulf Coast Ecosystem Restoration Task Force that involves all of the Gulf states as well as the federal government in trying to make sure that we can both hold the polluters accountable, but make sure that we're bringing those communities back to health. I think the other thing is, we need to do a better job as a federal government of ensuring that that we are good stewards of our oceans and our coasts, and so the president created a National Oceans Council really for the first time to bring the federal government together and to create the kind of information and data and all of that stuff that we need to ensure that we can continue to balance the needs for resource development, whether it's conventional energy or renewable energy, whether it's our security and transportation needs, with the need to maintain the health of those ecosystems, because they're so important for the health of the planet, but they're also important for the communities who live along those coasts. And then I think the last thing is that you know, the clean energy growing the clean energy economy is good for public health, it's good for the planet, but it's potentially very good for communities that you know, that have been affected by any of these sort of big economic dislocations. So we see, for example, in the Midwest, real strategies being put in place by states to try to attract green manufacturing, green jobs, because they recognize that that's where the future is going. And if you get in early, you know, you stand a better chance of sort of establishing yourself as the place to come to. And so these strategies that the president talked about, the clean energy standard, the goals on alternative technology vehicles, goals for retrofitting commercial buildings that he talked about at Penn State last week. These are creating real opportunities for real jobs in communities across the country. And you talk to mayors and governors around the country, and they are enthusiastic and almost giddy with the potential for these clean energy jobs to come to their communities.
Bill, the aluminum industry was built really around public investment in infrastructure, hydropower in the Northwest, the aerospace industry, beyond the direct inputs to the companies in the terms of, particularly on the defense side. There was a huge investment in public infrastructure in previous generations. Do we need that again? And where's Alcoa's views about the president's call for more investment in public infrastructure?
Right, with our energy requirement, we really needed energy, and it was the government that delivered. They built hydropower stations in the Pacific Northwest through the Tennessee Valley Authority, upstate New York, and that was the magnet for our opening of businesses, to take us close to the energy and where it was required. If you think about infrastructure for the future, I think the infrastructure of the future is in water. By the way, we've talked a lot about energy, but think about the world. It's covered with water. We have a lot, right? No, we don't. 97% of it is either salt water or frozen, not usable. So of the 3% that's left, 1.5% can't be used because of pollution or other reasons. Of the 1.5% of the water on the earth that's available, 20% is in the Great Lakes region. Yes, it is, in the Great Lakes region. If we act responsibly and keep it clean, we will attract businesses into that area because of infrastructure. And I believe that if we do that, that'll help all industries, all businesses, all jobs, which is good. So as an organization, you want to go where your resources are. You want to go where the supply chain is cheaper, where you can move products that are lighter, shorter distances to save energy, which saves money, which gives better return for the shareholders and satisfies the customers and all of us as consumers. So I think the infrastructure is extremely important, not only in energy, but in water also.
We're about out of time. I'm just going to ask one last question, maybe to Nancy and Leo and Kevin, if you have one last word. Skilled workforce. I know, Nancy, you were involved in developing a multi-agency effort to do building retrofits and trying to have the skilled workforce for it. What's the role of the government? How's that going? And what is the role of unions in providing the skilled workforce to carry out the vision that's embedded in the clean energy job?
Well, it's incredibly important. When we were, you know, we heard Bill talking earlier about a company that has made incredible investments in energy efficiency to save money and also help them to market their products. And the potential for energy efficiency around the country If we saved 20% of our energy, we'd save our economy $200 billion a year. That's huge. And yet it's sort of in fits and starts where the incentives are clear. And so as we start to look at why we don't have sort of sustained efforts and sustained investments in, for example, residential energy retrofits, 130 million homes. Most people have no idea how their homes use energy. One of the things was, who's going to do the work? How can you assure a homeowner when somebody comes into their home to do retrofit that they know what they're doing? We were able to put some money in the Recovery Act, $500 million for green job training. Certainly, the unions around the country, community colleges, communities around the country are investing in this kind of training, and it's incredibly important because we need this skilled workforce. There's huge potential also in commercial buildings. The president talked about that last week. Again, to line up the incentives in the right way, to make the information available, and to assure the people who run these buildings that there's a workforce out there that can not only make the upgrades and retrofits, but it can also maintain the systems and continue to maintain the performance. So I think it's got to be a shared effort among the government, among industry, among workers and the unions, and our educational institutions. And certainly the president talked a lot in the State of the Union about the need to invest in education to make sure that there's a skilled workforce as our economy continues to get more and more sophisticated, that the basic skill levels and skills in science and technology and engineering and mathematics are going to be incredibly important to assure that we have the best trained, best equipped workforce in the world.
I'll be real quick. I think I agree with everything Nancy said. I come to recognize that we have some of the best teachers in the world. And lately we've been vilifying them instead of praising them, and I was proud of what the president said about them in the State of the Union. Almost 25 years ago, the Steelworkers created the Institute for Career Development. We've partnered with the Blue-Green Alliance. We've got a small grant from the Department of Labor, and we're doing training of our workers in steel mills, aluminum, paper, rubber, training them for the next generation of jobs. I know that the building trades in America have some of the best training institutes in the world, so that if we can come together again with an industrial plan, a manufacturing strategy that brings all of that talent together and sets a course, has some stability, gives us some direction for the future, workers and unions will give you the most skilled workforce in the world.
There is no reason at all why this country should not be the export engine of the world of ever more efficient clean energy technologies. The key is smart, forward-looking public policy. It is not accidental that the hybrid electric car came out of Japan. It's not accidental that the super clean diesel engine came out of Europe, or that Germany, that has about as much sun as our northernmost states, is leading the world in solar photovoltaics. Spain on wind power. That's not accidental. Those were policy, governmental policies, societal policies put in place. So we need to move toward a low-carbon fuel standard, a low-carbon electricity standard. Set the performance standards, let the technologies compete. And just one closing example that's very much alive. This administration, with Nancy's leadership, for the first time has written rules to increase the fuel economy of medium and heavy duty trucks, weight trucks, for the first time. And our projections show, this will be over the 2014 to 2018 timeframe, that by 2020 that will produce 40,000 new jobs, and by 2030, 80,000 new jobs. And it will reduce the costs of those trucking and shipping companies for fuel, which will hopefully be turned around, as the president has called, for investment in jobs, as well as the costs of consumers for shipping. So this stuff works, and it's not rocket science. We know what we need to do, and we just have to get to it.
Back to our fearless leader, Mr. Foster.
Thank you very
very much, panel, and thank you very much, Jon Podesta, for leading this exciting conversation. We want to encourage all of you to come back here directly at noon. We're buying lunch for you and have a great program. Now you have about 15 minutes to get to your workshop. And we encourage you to look at the blue sheet, not the green sheet, in your bag. It will give you quickly the rooms where your workshops are located. So thank you very much, and we'll see you back here at noon.
Me too.